Recording in progress.
Morning, everyone. So if we get started, if that's right with you, Andy.
Yeah.
Perfect. Morning. Welcome to this Kent and Medway Growth Hub workshop today. We've got the amazing Andy Jones with us today, talking us all things, talking us to all things photography, story of photography, and yeah, we're really, really excited for today. Just before we get into the actual workshop, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and the Growth Hub. I'm Sarah Winflow with the Kent and Medway Growth Hub. This is an online event today, so I am recording it. So it'll be up on later on our YouTube channel. I'll email you all the details over the next couple of days. Just on the screen at the moment is a QR code which takes you to the event registration form. Just a few details about yourself and your business so that we can provide more support after today. Oh, there is an echo. Oh, sorry about that. Hopefully that's no, that's sorry, bear with me. Hopefully that's working better. Does that sound better to everyone attending, or has that got worse? I'll go ahead and then I think it's got worse. I'll keep going ahead, and then if there is an echo, just let me know in the Q&A section. I can edit, change how I'm talking. But yeah, so the Kent and Medway Growth Hub, we are basically a one-stop shop for all things business support. So we can provide business support through helping you with finance, helping you with gaining access to grants, to government funding. We have a lot of industry experts in everything. So if you need to be connected to an industry expert, we're like a one-stop shop for anything you need to grow your business or help you get these skills and training you require. So please look at all our other events. We've got some amazing events coming up as well. Basically, how this morning will go is we'll have a 45-minute to an hour presentation from Andy, talking all things photography with us, which we are very excited for. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you type your questions into the Q&A section of the Zoom, then I can turn your microphones on when we come to the Q&A section at the end, or alternatively, I can read them out for you, whatever is easiest. And then hopefully we'll all be wrapped up by 11 o'clock. So yeah, have a cup of tea, enjoy, and I hope you learned some amazing things from Andy this morning. Is Andy there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Time to go.
Your speaker, Andy. Are you able to talk, Andy, or have I muted you?
Can you hear me?
Muted you. Apologies. No, you are there.
I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm Andy Jones. I've been a professional photographer for over 20 years. I've worked for both of the big newspaper groups in Kent, both as a staff photographer for 10 years and as a press freelance photographer for 5 years. During this time, I was fortunate enough to win Press Photographer of the Year 3 times at the Kent Press and Broadcast Awards. For the last 5 years, I've been working as a freelance PR and commercial photographer in Kent, London, and across the South East. Okay. Can you go back a slide? That's better. Thanks. So today I'm going to talk about an introduction to me, my work and career path, the basics of exposure and composition, the art of the meaningful image, how preparation is key, developing your unique style and creating compelling photo stories, confidence and creativity, the business side of photography, finishing with a conclusion, and then a Q&A. There's quite a lot that you can talk about when asked to deliver a seminar or workshop on photography. This is the first time that I've ever talked about my photography, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing, so forgive me. I've tried to keep it fairly simple so that photographers of all abilities and experience can hopefully gain something. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the talk and go over anything in more detail if I can. I've put the slides around the wrong way. Go back a slide. That's it, I think. Go forward. That's it. Here we are. Right. So I'm going to start by giving you a very brief flavour of my career to introduce myself, my background and my work to you. Firstly, I'm going to talk about my journey to becoming a professional photographer and how I've done it, which may be of interest to some of you. I'll keep it as brief as possible as I really don't like talking about myself much. So I have no formal qualifications or training in photography. I'm completely self-taught. My background is actually in fine art. I graduated in 2001 with a degree in fine art, specialising in sculpture. My passion for photography really started during the last year of my degree. My sculptures were kinetic and made from sand, so photography was a good way to document them and to actually prove that I'd actually been doing some work and not just making sandcastles. After graduating, my camera was the only tool that I had with which I could easily create. I taught myself through books, recording settings, and most importantly, taking thousands upon thousands of photographs and making many mistakes along the way. Like most new graduates, I got a job that I wasn't particularly interested in, answering phones. But in my spare time, I would go out with my camera and just take photos. After a year or so, I got a job at the camera shop Jessop's in town, where I was able to fully immerse myself in photography, taking advantage of cheap gear, free films, free processing, etc. I met lots of photographers, always picking their brains for tips and tricks, and I also got to play around with all the latest digital cameras at the time, which were an amazing 6 megapixels. During this time, a colleague and I set up our own business, taking motorsport photography, just taking photos at local motocross tracks and selling images to the riders on site and via our own website. Continuing to take advantage of the cheap prints at work. I had a few of these images on the wall in Jessop's. And one day I was left a phone number of a customer who ran a track day photography company, and I ended up working for him for a few years, covering track days at Brands Hatch, Silverstone, Alton Park, Donington, Spa in Belgium, amongst many others. By this point, my business partner had left Jessop's and was freelancing for the local newspaper groups. I asked if I could go along with him for a few days to see what it was like, and I absolutely loved it. One newspaper group needed freelance photographers, so I contacted them and did a test shift, and from that I became a regular freelancer for them. I did this for a month while still working at Jessop's. After a big cheese from head office came to visit and really got on my nerves, I quit there and then, served my notice and went completely freelance. Ended up working for both of the newspaper groups in the county while continuing to work track days and motocross events where possible. Next slide, please. Cool. 3 months later, I was offered a staff job, as a job as a staff photographer for the Folkestone Herald and Dover Express, which I accepted. A real baptism of fire followed for the next year, marked by a lot of silly but mostly funny mistakes. However, I worked hard, learned quickly, and turned myself into a dependable photographer. I put myself forward for the bigger sports jobs such as World Superbikes, playoff finals at Wembley, Open Golf Championships at Sandwich, and also became the group credited photographer for Kent County Cricket Club, which took me to finals days at Lords, the Oval, and Edgbaston cricket grounds. I think I annoyed all the other group photographers by doing these jobs, but all I actually did was just ask if I could do them in the first place. Yeah, so it was a really great grounding for me, as I got to challenge myself by doing all kinds of photography, from breaking news, sport, local events, royal visits, crazy weather, advertising, and of course lots of people angrily pointing at something. Other highlights included organising and shooting two stormtroopers to go out around Folkestone for a Star Wars night out picture gallery, after I was asked by my editor to produce an online gallery to coincide with the release of The Force Awakens, kind of the birth of clickbait, really. This was really very popular online, on our own channels, and went viral and just appeared kind of everywhere for a couple of weeks. So whilst I love getting paid for taking pictures and being part of all the interesting stories, what I actually came to love more was being part of the community, meeting new people, and getting to see all corners of Kent. I felt like really privileged to be able to sort of do that. I also asked to get trained on the running of the pitch desk, after getting frustrated by the system falling apart when the regular picture desk assistants were off sick or on holiday. So anyway, after 10 years in this role, I was made redundant, along with all of the other photographers in the group. The very next day, I started working for the rival newspaper group, the Kent Messenger Group, as a freelance photographer, where I continued to work across all areas of Kent. I again covered county cricket and then Gillingham FC in the EFL. I also worked on the Royal Rota, covering the Queen's visit to Aylesford in 2019. Also gained more experience working on the pitch desk, organising the photographic diaries and the other photographers. I was pretty busy working, sometimes 7 days a week. When COVID hit, I was quite relieved for a bit of downtime, to be quite honest. But COVID really did change things for me. The work literally dried up for about a year. So that's just an overview of what I've done. If we could move to the next slide. So my current focus, since then, I've been slowly building back up my business, concentrating mainly on PR and commercial photography. These are some examples of what I've done over the last year. My clients include South Eastern Railway, Network Rail, Department for Transport Operator, Maxim PR, and Rochester Bridge Trust, amongst others. Also work for an agency covering jobs for big brands such as Aldi, Co-op, and Dobbies. And I work for 3 other photographers, where I pick up jobs that they can't do themselves, so a little bit of a sort of group of us together. Despite covering the same events over the years, I still feel that I learn something new every day, and it is always my aim to produce the best images that I possibly can from each assignment. I challenge myself to deliver photographs that are eye-catching, different, fresh, and relevant to the story. I love working as a photographer, and I have lots of fun, and I think that's important, that I make it an enjoyable experience for the people that I photograph, as this normally shines through in work that any photographer produces. Right, so now let's move on to some of the fundamentals. So exposure triangle. So I'm just going to very briefly go over this. So to achieve a correctly exposed image, all of these elements must be balanced together. All 3 elements affect each other, so if you change one, then you need to adjust the others. I'll start by explaining the three elements and then move on to some examples. So aperture, expressed as F, controls how much light enters the lens and affects your depth of field, or how much is in focus from the back to the front of the image. Wide aperture such as 2.8 give you a shallow depth of field, or less in focus from back to the front of the image. You can use wide apertures to blur your background and isolate your subject. Small apertures such as f16 give you a larger depth of field, or more in focus from back to the front of your image. So wide apertures are good for landscapes or group shots where you want more in focus from the back to the front of the image. Moving on to shutter speed. This is expressed as fractions of time. Shutter speed controls the length of time that the shutter is open for. So the longer or slower the shutter is open, the more light is available for exposure. The less time the shutter is open, the less light will be available for exposure. You can use shutter speed to control motion. A fast shutter speed such as 1,000th of a second.
Motion detected at the front door.
Will freeze actions such as sports or moving subjects. Slower shutter speed such as a 30th of a second will blur movement, and depending on the lens focal length can also show camera shake in the image. ISO, so this controls how sensitive the camera's sensor is. A low ISO such as ISO 100 is less light sensitive and will give you images that appear cleaner with less noise or grain. ISO 100 is great for bright sunny days or studio photography where light levels aren't an issue, and a high ISO such as ISO 3200 is more light sensitive. It will give you images that appear noisier or grainier. High ISOs are great for when you don't have much light to work with, or cannot or don't want to use flash. So for example, if you choose to use f16, which is a narrow aperture, so less light coming into the lens, then you can expect to balance this by using a slower shutter speed. A slower shutter speed could result in a blurry image. If this is not a desired effect, then you will need to balance this by adjusting your ISO to allow for a faster shutter speed. Think of these quite simply. Work out what you want to achieve first. For example, if you want to freeze the action, then you need to bias your shutter speed as a priority, and then balance your aperture and ISO to achieve the correct exposure. If you want to have a large depth of field, then bias your aperture and adjust your shutter speed and balance an ISO to balance the exposure. If you have no light to work with, just give up and go home. Only joking. Set your ISO as a priority and adjust your shutter speed and aperture to suit. So moving on to a very quick composition part. So I've divided this image up into the rule of thirds, which is in yellow, and leading lines in red. The rule of thirds is where you divide the image into equal segments, the theory being that you place the subject or point of focus on these intersecting points to balance the photo and encourage the viewer's eye to be led around and explore the entire frame. Looking for leading lines also helps to lead the viewer's eye into your frame and back out, and shows the point of interest. This could also be going from dark to light, as in this picture. Also, you can frame within a frame, which you can add depth, where you can add depth to your image. Composition is also a part of where you decide what is in the picture, and sometimes more importantly, what is not. Keep things simple and allow for each visual element to breathe. These aren't necessarily strict rules to live by, so you kind of have to break them a lot of the time, but they're a really good foundation. So when to break these rules, patterns, shapes, designs can often work better by composing with the focus or the subject in the center. This results in more formal looks, especially useful if something's like symmetrical, perfectly symmetrical. You can also add narrative by placing subjects at the extremes of the frame which can create tension or show isolation. Knowing how or where your image is going to be used is also a situation where you might not adhere to these rules strictly. An example of this would be if you're shooting a cover for a magazine where you would typically shoot an image with lots of space around it to accommodate for things like mastheads which go at the top and subtext which goes down the sides and all of that stuff. It will normally look really weird as an image on its own right, but once it's on the page with all the other stuff on it, it looks really good. So the art of the meaningful image. The difference between taking snaps and creating a meaningful image is your intention. You don't just sort of take pictures, you actually have to make them sometimes. When I'm shooting, I'm looking for that decisive moment that will tell a story. This doesn't just happen though. Well, it can if you're lucky, but if you're not lucky, then you have to make your own luck. You can't rely on luck. You have to know the story or the why behind the image. Most of this is all done pre-shoot before the camera is even out the bag. Most of this is delivered via a good brief. If you don't know the why, then you have to find it. If you don't have a good brief, research what you can pre-shoot, ask the client the right questions and speak to the subject to find out the why. The where. Know your location, venue, environment. I often look for these images online pre-shoot to try and get a flavour for the environment that I'm going to be working in and with, especially if it's somewhere I'm unfamiliar with. This helps to give me an idea of what gear I might need and how my approach to capturing what I need and want to. Armed with the why, start thinking about how you're going to knit all of these elements together. Think about whether you can use the location to add to the narrative and to help tell the story. Good preparation gives you a game plan. It reduces anxiety and allows you to focus on producing better images. Here's an example of a really good brief. It tells me everything I need to know: the what, the where, the how, the why, the when. It gives me a list of shots they would like, and I've got some imagery to further understand what the client likes and wants to capture. As an added bonus, some of them were taken by me, which is always nice when you receive a mood board with your own pictures on. This gives me a great starting point in what to look out for and what to avoid, and I can start to think creatively around these. I've also got the images to hand if I ever get stuck creatively, which can happen. So the execution. When you're at shoot, get there early, double check your gear, take a look around, scout out locations for pictures, understand the lighting conditions, think about potential compositions, take some test shots, write exposures on your hand if you need to. Ask yourself, do your pre-shoot plans match the reality? To be honest, pretty much all of the time they don't perfectly, if at all. So you usually have to adapt your plans, but at least you have some ideas to start you off. This is an important part of your skill set as a photographer to calmly and creatively overcome problems. Check your work as you go. This is the great thing about digital. You can see what you've taken straight away. No more waiting until after the shoot for the film to come back. Make sure you are capturing what you want and how you want. If you can spot mistakes as you go along, you have to own them so you can immediately rectify them. Be in control, especially with big groups of people, which really is like herding cats sometimes. Get them where you want them and how you want them. Don't settle for a bad shot. You're better off getting it right and resetting up a shot rather than wishing you had after, because it's too late then. Take enough pictures to give yourself a choice when you edit. This covers you for all the squinters and blinkers out there. We all make mistakes. We're only human. We've all accidentally knocked our shutter dial or forgot to change our ISO when moving from shooting indoors to outdoors. It happens. Part of being a professional, though, is recognising it, owning it, and then fixing it. You need to engage with clients and subjects to create a comfortable environment. This is essential for natural looking photos. If you're in an event, say a company seminar or a wedding, just walk the room. There's normally someone who will notice the camera and quip, you've got a big one, or something equally as funny that you've heard 1,000 times before. Chat to them though, offer them an equally written reply if you can think of one quick enough. The chances are you'll be taking their picture later in the day and you've already made a connection with them. Chat to your subject to make them feel more relaxed with you. Bear in mind that most people don't like having their picture taken, which is a bit of an occupational hazard. They will normally disclose any securities they have about having their picture taken. Take a mental note of these and be aware of these during your shoot, ensuring you don't cross their boundaries. Talk during the shoot where possible. Talk about anything until the conversation begins to flow. This relaxes your subject and they tend to forget about any of their insecurities after that. I just thought I'd give you a few tips on how to take pictures of people that are particularly awkward, I guess you'd say. So for subjects that really don't like having their pictures taken, just try shaking them. Only joking. Try some exercises like loosening up exercises like, shaking your hands and feet, jumping up and down, windmills. Do these with them so they don't feel as silly. It can help both of you to relax. Start by shooting further away and then moving closer. Try shooting with them looking away from the camera and gradually get them to look at you. You can pose them so they are comfortable. If they're uncomfortable, chances are they will look awkward in the pictures. Tweak poses gently and subtly. Ask them to move things like stray hair, slightly turn towards you for a better look, etc. Demonstrate poses for them to copy. Most people are not used to being photographed and don't know how to stand, don't know what to do. So you have to sort of be in control and tell them what looks good. Reassure them, tell them and show them on the camera how good they look. So developing your unique style. Wet my whistle. So how do you find your style? This is something that a lot of upcoming photographers fret about. In my opinion, this is something that you just shouldn't worry much about. Finding your style comes naturally. It's an organic, subconscious process and it will always be evolving. It starts with discovering what techniques, what subjects you naturally gravitate towards. But experiment with different techniques and types of photography. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. This can actually help to build confidence. It increases your capacity to handle the unknown and exposes you to new ideas, people, experiences and techniques. So create mood boards. So find photographs, paintings or films that you love and try to figure out what you love about them. This could be the colours. Are they muted? Are they vibrant? Black and white? It could be the lighting. Is it soft and natural, dramatic? Is it the compositional choices that draw you to it? Is it an emotion that is evoked within you? Make mood boards of the imagery that you like, even if you don't know why you like them. This is a mood board that I've put together for some headshots. In reality, I wouldn't put one of these together, so it's solely for your benefit here. What I would do with this, I would just take some screen grabs on my phone prior to the shoot that I can refer to when I'm there. I can then use these if I get creatively stuck, and and can even show the client as a conversation starter or what I'm trying to achieve, and you can gauge whether they like it, and you can. It's just a really good way to start to work. If you have other hobbies or passions outside of photography, it's likely that
Motion
you will
detected at the
naturally
front door.
gravitate towards photographing these, combining both interests. If you reflect over your images over, say, a year, you'll start to see patterns or themes forming, especially from your favourite shots. So post-processing. Post-processing is often where you can also further define your style. You'll probably find that you adjust the same things every time, such as blacks, whites, shadows, tones, sharpening, etc. Experiment with using different Lightroom presets to start with, and then you'll normally find that there are a few that you prefer to use. Once you have found a look that you love, make a preset. This immediately gives your work consistency and starts your visual fingerprint. It also improves your workflow speed, which ultimately leads to more profit. So for me, it's a mix of contemporary and traditional. I like clean lines, realistic, punchy colours, and images that don't look dated in a few years. Don't force a style just because it's a trend. Be authentic to yourself to show what you love. Like, trends are fleeting, really. So this is how I edit. So first of all, just some quick tips for culling images. Cull quickly. Go through your shoot and first of all select what is good. Be ruthless. If it's out of focus and the exposure is off, just get rid. Nobody needs to see these. Just bin them. Once you've done this, cull again and again until you're left with what is good and what is relevant. Don't repeat images. Select the best version. If you're struggling to do this, look away and the best one will just normally jump out at you. Avoid over editing. Stick to minimal cropping. From this screenshot, you can see how I edit. So if you look at the box on the right, so yeah, minimal adjustments, just tweaks really. So here I have adjusted the exposure by a hair, reduced the highlights and added to the whites. I've also boosted the vibrance and saturation ever so slightly, just to make the image pop a little bit more. Next, I would add sharpening, add a sharpening preset as it's a raw file and needs to be sharpened. I add a vignette preset, export, caption with names, etc., and then send to the client as a JPEG. Typically, when on a PR job, I take my laptop. I would normally go through the images with the PR contact or client and then send a small selection quickly for use on social media or for sending to the main media. And then I deliver the whole set of images within the hour. Okay. So creating compelling photo stories. To build a story, you need variety. I sort of think about it as sort of 3 shots. There's way more of these, but these are the 3 main ones. So if I could go to the next slide. So the wide, so you establish the scene, capture the subject within its environment, and show the viewer the context, scale and location and the subject's place within it. You sort of ask yourself, can you question this relationship? Try to show the venue, the weather, the atmosphere. The technique really is to sort of use a wide lens, 28mm or wider, or somewhere around that. There's no hard and fast rules to this. Yeah, try moving different distances away from the subject and experiment with different viewpoints, such as shooting from a low or a high angle. In terms of apertures, typically you'd probably use a a depth of field using medium to small apertures, so sort of f8, f11, f16, something like that, which will give you as much in focus as possible. So the medium, this is normally the sweet spot between the wide shot and the close-up. More intimate than a wide shot and less abstracted than a close-up. It allows the viewer to experience the dialogue between capturing detail, expressions, body language or emotion while still showing a connection to the environmental context. Typically framed from the knees or the waist up. Use a focal length of 50mm upwards. This could also be a group shot of people. I normally think of this as the shot that can tell the story without the existence of the other two. And moving on to the next slide. So yeah, the tight or the details. Typically the subject feels as much of the frame as possible. This could be a portrait or a headshot of the subject. It could be the detail of a product or the rings at a wedding. It further focuses attention and convey more emotion. Can reveal a texture, can show the viewer a unique feature, or just make the ordinary more fascinating. Typically shot from either physically close to the subject or by zooming in with a telephoto lens such as a 70-200 or a macro lens if it's super duper small. Depth of field is normally shallow using larger apertures, which will further isolate the subject from the background. Try to find like a constant in all of these shots, as this helps further to connect all of the images together. This could just be the subject that you're photographing, or it could be a recurring colour, texture, feeling, theme. Other things to consider are, can you create tension, emotion or warmth through lighting or composition? Can you use motion to capture a relevant action or to further express emotion? You could try experimenting with slow shutter speeds to capture the movement actually flowing, which would give you a more dynamic image. Try presenting your images together chronologically, which gives you an immediate narrative and suggests a beginning, middle and end, or move these around to adjust the narrative. Your experience and your images are unique to how you see the world, so there's no real right or wrong with this. The aim is to always make the viewer feel like they are actually there. You could ask 20 photographers to photograph the same thing at the same time, and you'd end up with 20 sets of completely different pictures, all unique to their take on things. So moving on to sort of confidence and creativity. So creativity is made even harder when you're fumbling with your settings. To be as creative as possible, you must be technically confident. You should be able to change your settings without taking your eye off the viewfinder. So why? Because the moment you look down at your buttons, you can miss the moment, and it just looks a bit unprofessional if you're sort of there fumbling, looking like you don't know what you're doing. If you don't exude confidence, it's difficult for people to be confident in you. So how can you build this confidence? Practice, really. Read your camera's manual, know how to change the settings that you need quickly. Set up a custom menu on your camera and include all the functions that you may need to access during a shoot. I have things like metering modes, format card, white balance, focusing modes, color styles, etc. I have these all set as a custom menu on my cameras. Also things that I can never find on the normal menus. These help you to change things quickly on the fly. What you can do is try changing settings on your camera and lenses with your eyes closed. I did actually used to do this sitting on my bed. just playing with the camera, trying to make it like a muscle memory. So yeah, that's great for muscle memory. Before you know it, you'll be changing things without even thinking about where they are. Making your images as technically perfect as possible in the camera will make images more authentic, and it's going to greatly speed up the editing process. So don't get caught in the "I'll Photoshop that" trap. A technically poor image is always going to make a poor edit, whereas a technically good image is always going to give you a stronger foundation to work from. Think of editing as refining what you have rather than reconstruction. An old photography mentor of mine used to say to me, "You can't polish a turd." So other things you can do, try the one lens challenge. I used to do this regularly during my time on the papers, more for the creative challenge than anything. I'd go out for a day with just one lens, 50mm lens or something like that. So 50mm is ideal for this challenge actually. It forces you to zoom with your feet and see the world from a different perspective. I used to further expand this by doing things like no flash day, off camera flash day, or new lens day. The 15mm fisheye day was always fun though. These exercises are great for seeing the limitations of a new piece of kit and finding new techniques and encouraging creativity. You can also try no edit days. Try shooting JPEGs and you're not allowed to edit. Great for keeping things authentic and understanding camera settings, lighting conditions, and improving composition. This is how I used to have to shoot on the papers. JPEGs only, no editing, and sending the images as they were shot straight out of the camera. Ultimately, by limiting what you can use, you come up with creative solutions, and you have to think outside of the box, which is a really valuable skill to possess. When you stop worrying about gear and settings, you'll begin to see better see light, shadow, reflections, and emotions. Ultimately, knowing your camera gear inside out means you are never worried about the technical aspects and can focus more on the creative vision of your shot. Right, so moving on to the business side of photography. So I'm going to talk about the professional part of being a professional photographer. So your portfolio is your online shop window. Try and lead with your best work, not necessarily your favourite, and include a clear about me on your section, a clear about me selection on your website. Detail your experience. This is where you say yourself with words. Your portfolio images should be technically sound, so no unsharp, out of focus images. They're not allowed. Images should be well exposed with balanced colours and displayed at the optimum resolution or printed perfectly if it's physical. Don't show everything you've ever shot. Make sure your portfolio reflects the clients that you're trying to attract or the type of jobs that you would like to be paid to do again. Some tips for portfolios as well. So if you're a bit stuck, go through all of your work and start by selecting all of the images that are technically sound and interesting. You can try subdividing these into groups by theme or genre, or just ones that seem to sit well together. You've got to be ruthless, ensure that each image is earning its place. You can try printing images out and put them all together so you can look at them as a whole, which can sometimes be difficult on a screen. Like think of the X Factor when they used to put all the pictures of the bands all together and ruthlessly throw ones out. You've got to be a bit like that. Just get rid of them. Get feedback from friends, family, fellow photographers, and take on board their comments. You can try arranging images by theme, chronologically, or look. This gives a cleaner aesthetic. If you work in a few different genres or styles, it's better to have, for example, a commercial and PR sections. Clients can then find out what they want to see quicker without having to wade through the things they don't. to begin, keep portfolios to around 10 to 15 images to begin with, as this is just a really good way to get used to the process of being selective. Then, of course, you can add and go over this limit to display experience and consistency. So marketing. For me, word of mouth is king, but get your own website. Use this as your online base. If a customer finds you on social media, they are more than likely to do some due diligence by searching for a website. You can always get a custom one built, but there are loads of self-build options available which are really good, such as Squarespace and Wix. Personally, I use one called the Image File. Good SEO and a clean social media presence are also important. I don't really say a lot on social media, as you may or may not have discovered, so my presence is definitely a different kind of clean on there. Try to keep your brand consistent by using handles that relate to your business rather than just a random obscure name. Link social media back to your website. You may want to share behind the scenes content to let people see the person behind the camera, or you just might not want to do that. Consider which social media platforms will work best for the clients that you're targeting. I think a wedding photographer would probably find more clients on Instagram or Facebook than probably LinkedIn. Business cards. I had this kind of drummed into me when I was a lot younger, and it's something I've always done and I still continue to do. So always carry business cards. I find a lot of my clients, by just having a chat and giving them a card when I'm at a job. I've been at a shoot at a science park before though, and as I was leaving, a chap was running really quickly after me, shouting, "Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Oh," and the event involved photographing school children, so I'm thinking, "Oh, here we go." Turns out he worked for Christchurch Uni and needed a photographer for the following week, and as it later transpired, was also a really keen top ultramarathon runner, which explains his rather pacey approach towards me. I gave him a card, which ultimately led to some regular work. So get out there. I've also gained work by just turning up to events that I fancied. So I live in Ashford, had its first Pride event in 2024. I thought that it might make some interesting pictures, some colourful pictures. So I turned up and just started taking photos just for the fun of it. The organiser found me at the end and asked if she could use the pictures, and I said, "Yeah, go on then." They're probably just going to sit on my hard drive with nobody seeing them, in all honesty. So I agreed to that. The next year I was asked to be the official photographer, and then that turned into a paid gig as well. So, so working with clients, be the person that people want to hire. If you're calm, professional and kind, clients will recommend you more than if you're just a good photographer. Communicate professionally with clients, respond to emails or queries respectfully and quickly. One of the easiest things you can do is be on time, like just don't be late. Provide professional quotes for each job. Detail what you're going to deliver, set out a time frame, expectations, include your terms of business at the bottom of the quote. Then deliver what you promise. Be honest though, if you know that they are asking for something that you can't do, just tell them. Don't risk your reputation for a quick buck. If your client is a business, make sure you understand their business and not just the brief. Remember, as a photographer, you don't just take great photos, you're a creative problem solver. If something goes wrong, don't panic, stay calm, just think on your feet and come up with a solution. This also helps to build trust with your clients, and they'll be more likely to come back to you again and again. So just a little bit of boring stuff about insurance, but it is important. make sure that you're fully insured, and make sure that your insurance suits your business needs. You can find policies that are tailored for the amateur, semi-professional, and professional photographer. Specialist insurance policies cover accident, theft, and loss, normally with a new for old replacement on camera equipment. They give you peace of mind that if something happens, you can either hire gear to continue to work with minimum interruption whilst yours is being repaired or replaced. So there's a few different kinds of insurance that you should probably be aware of. Public liability. Most policies include some kind of public liability. This covers you if a third party is injured or you cause damage to their property through your photography. A good example of this would be if somebody trips over your bag or tripod. This is often actually a contractual requirement for most venues. For example, professional sports venues normally require somewhere in the region of £10 million of cover of public liability just to get an accreditation. There's also professional indemnity. This protects you and your reputation against claims of negligence, technical faults, disputes over quality of work, or just or failure to meet contractual expectations. So, sustainability. Taking photographs is probably only 25% of what you do as a photographer. The other 75% is made up of editing, travelling, chasing payment, client management, and other admin. If you're unsure of how to run a business or need help doing business plans, etc., there are lots of free business courses available. Some are online, so you don't even have to leave the house. I did do one of these locally through a Chamber of Commerce, possibly. I can't remember. It was a long time ago when I first started out with my motocross photography business. I'm sure Kent and Medway Growth Hub can help you out with some of these things, though. Use professional services such as accountants and solicitors. This allows you to concentrate on the fun stuff like taking pictures and not the less fun stuff like tax returns. So don't underprice yourself. Calculate your cost of doing business, not anyone else's. Include insurance, software, subscriptions, gear, wear and tear on your gear, and other overheads, as well as most importantly, your time. Your prices should reflect the going rate in your local area and your experience and particular expertise. I tend to price individually for each job, or I'm offered a fixed fee, which I can either take or leave. However, if you are a wedding or portrait photographer, you would probably normally offer fixed price packages for your time, and then offer add-on packages such as a second shooter or albums, prints, books, etc. I don't know, mugs, t-shirts, cuddly toys. Find out what other photographers with similar experience or expertise charge in your area, but don't undercut them. Like, honestly, this is just a race to the bottom for all of us. And a cheap photographer is rarely a sustainable one. Decide on your terms of business, such as deposits, cancellation fees, contracts. In my line of work, I work for fairly large companies, so I don't take deposits, as that's just the kind of norm. And my cancellation policy is that if the client cancels within 24 hours of the shoot, then I charge them full whack. The more notice I'm given, the less I would charge, if at all. If I can reschedule, I will. I've only actually had to charge for this once, and it was in client's assistance, but it still felt a bit awful doing it. But it can protect you from losing valuable and significant income. But be careful of how you enforce this. If it's a regular client, then you don't want to jeopardise future work. You don't want to risk gaining a few £100 in the short term, but missing out on thousands in the long term. Decide how you're going to manage your photographic library once they're taken. All of my working life, I've handed over the copyright of my work. That's just pretty much how it works when I was a staff or when I was a freelancer. And I just stipulate that I reserve the right to use the images for my own use and marketing. You can license your images to all types of media, such as TV, social media, and web use. If you Google AOP, it's just aop.org or theaop.org. There's a really good calculator, so you can get an idea of how much to charge and what that covers. It's great for having a ballpark figure in mind if you need to negotiate a fee. So continue to learn and develop new techniques relating to both your photography and your business. So it's a total myth that you need the best gear to take the best photographs. Good photographers can take great photographs with basic equipment. Start with a basic digital SLR or mirrorless camera body. Just pick one where you can manually adjust the shutter speed, aperture and ISO. Start with a standard zoom lens, such as a 24-70 lens. These are very versatile and suit most situations. Invest in good quality memory cards, such as SanDisk or Lexar, and protect your gear by buying a decent bag or case. Buying carry spare batteries for camera bodies and flashes. Make sure you charge everything, including spares, before you shoot. As you make more money and gain experience, you can upgrade the camera bodies and lenses. I'd always suggest investing in glass first. A pro lens will last a lot longer than a camera body, and it will retain better value, and it will make the biggest difference to your images. After a 24-70, perhaps try a 70 to 200 and a widey, such as a 17-35 or similar. Explore the second-hand market. There are a lot of great second-hand gear out there that you can take advantage of. Another thing I do is always carry a second body. It's handy to have a second body when you don't have time to change lenses. But more importantly, if something happens to your main body, then you have a backup to seamlessly transition to without risking your shoot and reputation. This is like another part of the professionalism part of being a professional. However, the greatest investment that you can make is not in the most expensive equipment. It's actually in yourself. Ultimately, your skills, mind, and creativity are the things that really make the images. The camera is literally just a tool to express and translate your ideas into tangible images. Bit of gear porn for you. This is an image of my gear, and it shows what I would take to most jobs and covers me for most of my PR jobs. So I've just put a few links to companies that I use or have used over the years and have had good experience with them. Not sponsored or endorsed, but I'm happy. If anyone works for any of these companies, then I'm happy to talk to them about that. So moving on to the conclusion. So photography is a journey of constant learning. It's about being present, being patient, being brave enough to show the world how you see it. That's it. All done. The end. I'm happy to take questions.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Andy.
It's all right.
I think I'm still echoing, so apologies for that. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience. It's amazing, the technical aspects, the business aspect. I've learned loads this morning. I'm sure everyone else has. We will do a bit Q&A now. So, Amanda, I wonder if I can unmute you. Amanda White has gone in here. Oh. No. Amanda White says she's new to photography and has been asked to capture images for a stock photo library. What should she consider when taking those photos?
What, in terms of subject? Um,
Don't know.
Yes, internal subject. Thank you.
sorry, was that subject? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Lot as well. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? You could do anything, couldn't you? You could start by doing just your local environment, especially if it's changing. Um, buildings and things. I guess you've got to perhaps got to look for things that might possibly um, change. That's one avenue you could do. You could do I don't know, think things like money. I guess you've got to try and think of like uh, how and where these could be used. So um, to illustrate, they're always going to need to illustrate something. Yeah, I hope that
Perfect.
helps in some
Chris
way.
has said, thank you for your talk, very interesting, and I learned a lot. I'd like to ask, what are your opinions of AI, particularly from an image generation and also inspirational aid perspectives? Obviously, it can't capture a genuine moment, but for commercial purposes.
So, sorry, what the question's disappeared. I was reading it and
Oh, sorry. I'll put it in the answered section. So the opinions of AI for
oh
an
right,
image
okay, AI,
generation.
yeah. I mean, I've never really used it. I sometimes use it in Photoshop for selections and things like that. I don't really use it. I think with AI, it's kind of something that everyone's scared of, particularly in our industry. Um, um, I've never. Yeah, I mean, I guess I totally agree with it. It can't capture AI can't capture emotion. It can't capture things like that. It's still missing that human um, element. But it's kind of something that we've all got to deal with. But if you sort of look back to 2007 when Facebook came along, and now that's completely changed the world. It kind of nailed the final coffin nail in the coffin of sort of newspapers as a physical thing. Everything's kind of moved online, so you're always going to have to adapt and overcome things like that. But that's what everyone's always done. That's what we had to do back then, and that's what we're going to have to do here. And I guess you've got to try and think of it as a tool that you can use. I wouldn't totally bury my head in the sand and be like, even though that's what I feel like doing. You've just got to embrace it. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my thoughts on AI a little bit.
Perfect, thank you. Rosie has asked, do you provide prompts for the brief for clients or just go what is provided by them?
A bit of both, really. I kind of, how I sort of would tend to interpret a brief is that's what that the list is kind of what they want, and if there's pictures and stuff like that, I would kind of do that. But I'd also have some of my own ideas, and I would tend to, for a corporate sort of PR-y type client, I'd tend to kind of tick all those boxes first, then have a little play around, and I'd tweak it to my preference, kind of thing. So kind of do what they want, and then kind of show them what you can do as well. And they can either like it or lump it. They've got, they've got what they asked for, but you've given them something extra as well. So yeah, I mean, I think part of being a photographer as well in that situation is it's really how you can control people. So you kind of got to orchestrate everything, and you can sort of lead people into it, doing what you want. Yeah, oh, let's just try this now, you know, and yeah, something like that, I'd say.
Amanda's asked, do you think it's worth having client photo albums on your own website or hosting sites? What's better to get images to clients? Google Drive, WeTransfer?
Oh yeah. So I use a combination of different things. One thing that I like about the image file, which is kind of the thing behind my website, is that I can set up private client pages so people can't see them, and it kind of works like WeTransfer, but it's completely personalized, and completely you know, but it's invisible. No one else can see it, so your client can go straight to it, and it's really good because it directs people back to your website, and I can store up to, I don't know, like, I think there's a glitch in the matrix because it kind of lets me store. It's based on the amount of pictures, not the actual size, so I can store, I guess, an infinite amount of images in terms of memory on there, but the actual number of pictures is quite a lot. So I tend to use that because that kind of links them with the branding, and obviously people might be encouraged to look on your website further when you're directing them back to it. But in terms of like galleries, I think if if you're a wedding or portrait photographers, yeah, definitely have some galleries, but make them private, or password them, so just any old Tom, Dick, or Harry can't jump on. If it's things like a wedding, that's or portraits, you don't want anyone being able to sort of really see those. Yeah, that's sort of my take on it. So I guess the answer ultimately is yes.
Perfect. And we'll do one more.
Yeah.
What laptop do you use on the go?
I've got a MacBook Pro. It's quite an old one now, M1. Yeah, nothing particularly fancy. Yeah, obviously I'd like a new one.
Put it on the wish list.
But yeah, I'd stick to Apple if you can, especially for anything sort of creative digitally. Apple's just great. I've had machines that have lasted for sort of. I've still got one that's I bought in 2012 that still works. They're really well built, really really robust, really light. The battery lasts forever. Just quick. Yeah, it's definitely worth the extra money that they cost. You get what you pay for at the end of the day, don't you? So
yeah, you do. Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Andy, for presenting this workshop today. If anyone's got any further questions for Andy, I'm sure he's happy for you to reach out to him. I'll put your details in the email I send out to everyone this afternoon.
Cool.
I'd just like to draw everyone's attention to a couple of our upcoming events. If anyone's in Gravesham, we're actually in Gravesham tomorrow for one-to-one business support meetings. We have another workshop on February 11th about unlocking growth with powerful SEOs. And we have a 2-day startup course on the 18th and 19th of February about how to start up your own business, and just go through the basics of how to create a successful business. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.